ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to She Captains and Pirate Queens, the women who ruled the seas of old. Just give me a minute. This is, Okay, good. I've muted myself. So I can see your comments now. Hey Jesse, welcome aboard. And thank you, Sam, for all of your help with these technical issues. I am a little bit about me. My background does not involve computers one way or another, unless we're talking about photo editing. So, hello, Doctor. I see you. Welcome everyone to this very exciting performance and presentation. This is a learning curve for me, so bear with me. I know absolutely nothing about streaming through YouTube, so if it's a complete and utter disaster, I apologize, but thank you again, Sam, for all of your help. Thank you, Steampunks of New England and Jewelry City Steampunk Festival, for having me on. I am affectionately known in the steampunk world by my steampunk handle, Sky Captain Kira Hawke, who happens to be the protagonist and main character of my brand new novel, Skyhawk Building Steam, that came out on May 1st. A little bit about my background. I am a professional photographer. Some of you may know me from Jewelry City last year at the Masonic Lodge, where I did Wendell and I did our photo booth, which I am currently sitting in the middle of. This is a wonderful backdrop, and my own personal logo for Hawke Weaponry. And from Stupid Cupid, too. So that's where we have our photo booth, and that's where you can find me again when these events pick back up, which I hope they do soon. And I hope you are all staying happy and healthy and well through the tough times that we are currently going through, experiencing. So, why am I here today? Well, I'm here for the same reason you are, to dive deeply into the fascinating world of she captains and pirate queens. I am dressed as the Sky Captain. Sky Captain Hawke is a female captain aboard the Cimarron. It is her freighter class airship that packs a punch in my novel. And her lead supporting character is none other than Captain Layla Aaron, an infamous and notorious sky pirate, and she is what we would call a pirate queen. So I'm going to dive into the history behind those two characters. So, without further ado, let me bring up my script here, because I unfortunately have not had a whole lot of time to go over and practice what I'm going to say to you today. So, here goes nothing, and I hope you are as fascinated and entertained by this world as I am. I do have some images that I'll be putting up to show you some pictures of the people that I'm talking about, and a couple of pictures of the characters, actually, for reference. So, to tie it all into my novel, I'll start off with a brief description, brief synopsis. The story follows the first mission of Sky Captain Kira Hawke. Again, a female captain. She is not a pirate, but I like to call her one. And the story involves time travel, a conspiracy, a badass airship, and sky pirates. And Nikola Tesla could possibly be better. So, the main character, Kira, is kind of loosely based off of a real historical figure whose name was Grania Mahal, or Grace O'Malley. She was a lady captain, and hello, Don Diego. And she was a lady captain and a pirate. She lived, I want to say it was the 1600s. Forgive me. Just give me 1 second to double check that. that information went right out the window at the moment. I do have it right here, though. She lived from 1533 to June 18th of 1603. So, she actually died an old lady. She was pretty awesome. And, hold on a second. So, I mean, a lot of research goes into writing a novel, so I do actually have a part at the back of this book called The History Behind the Characters. And if you are interested in learning more about these people, I highly recommend doing your own research and diving into it yourself. Like, because there's nothing better than reading some awesome knowledge. So, back to Grania Mahal, Grace O'Malley. See, she was a woman not to be trifled with. She was pretty awesome. Um, Let me bring up the picture I have here of Grania. Just give me a second. There she is on screen in all of her beautiful Irish statue glory. She was born in Ireland in a castle, and she grew up with all the knowledge and formal education available to her. She was as royal as they get, but it very quickly became apparent to her parents, especially to her father, that the life of a proper woman was not for her. So, she is the one that I've based Sky Captain Kira Hawke on. Here's Kira. She is my main character in my novel. She's pretty awesome, if I do say so herself, and much like Grania, there's a lot of parallels between the two, and she is another woman that is somebody you don't want to cross. Now, Grania was formally educated, and she possibly even learned Latin, but as a young girl, she jumped aboard her father's ship, and she disguised herself as a boy, but of course, every parent knows their child when they see it. Um, so it didn't take him long to figure out that his daughter was aboard his ship, and he actually he accepted that, he embraced that, and he brought her aboard and educated her in the ways of being a captain and a trader. He owned a shipping and merchant company, which when he died, she actually inherited. And in the book, Sky Captain Kira Hawke inherits her father's company, which is Hawke Weaponry. So her entire job is to um, make her rounds to her various ports and to her manufacturing facilities and trade a few weapons that she has on board. Of course, she has a whole fleet of other ships that do this for her as well. So, interestingly enough, those similarities didn't really happen on purpose. I kind of started writing the character, and then I did a lot of the research to understand who these pirate women were, and I found that this was pretty cool. That there was somebody who was identical, and the cool thing about Grace O'Malley here is that she was a true captain, a queen of her clan. She was a diplomat and a pirate with a remarkable force of character. She married twice, and it granted her quite a sum of land, allies, and power. And in a world where women were used as political pawns, which were granted the power through marriage, this woman turned that very notion on her head, and she's not the only female pirate that did that. There's a couple others that I'm going to get to in a little bit. She bore 3 children from her first husband, was later killed in battle. And when she married again to, I believe his name was Richard and Iron, she obtained control of this guy's castle, and then after a year of marriage, she dismissed him. She said, "All right, you can go now." But they remained allies, and they had one son, Toby of the Ships, who was born at sea. And one of my favorite stories about Grania Mahal, Grace O'Malley, is when she, like a day after she had given birth, she actually heard the skirmish going up aboard on the deck of her ship. And she must have been quite a sight, deathly pale, having just given birth, wrapped herself in a blanket, and there was a standoff going on between her crew and an enemy ship. So she went up on deck, grabbed her guns, her blunderbusses, and muttered the Irish equivalent of, "You men can't survive without me." And then she just fired into the enemy's faces, shouting, "Take this from an infidel hand," and then captured the enemy corsair and hung the crew at Rockfleet Castle, which was her castle that she stole from her husband. Um, so I thought that was pretty awesome. And Toby actually ended up being her favorite son, her youngest and her favorite. And she ended up getting captured, I believe. But 18 months later, she was released from Dublin Castle under the condition that she kept her husband, her estranged husband, in check. Um, but when England, who had captured her, sent their troops to check in on Grania to see if she was upholding her end of the bargain, they were met by the pirate queen herself and her husband, along with their sizable army, and the English were sent packing. So, her son, actually, Toby, ended up getting captured by Queen Elizabeth, um, and she went over there. She penned her pretty coolly, saying, I don't appreciate that you captured my son. I'd like it back now. And she went to meet the queen herself. And they actually kind of ended up becoming friends. Like, they realized that they had a lot in common, the queen and the pirate. I mean, they were both queens, I guess. And her son got released, and the queen kind of pardoned her. And she let Grania off the hook on a number of accounts and said, "All right, well, you can be a pirate and patrol my waters as long as you don't attack my ships." And Grania only kind of sort of listened to that and captured quite a few English vessels, but was it was kind of looked the other way. She was pretty awesome. Yes, Steampunks of New England. She's my kind of lady, too. She's one of my favorite historical figures, and that is why I'm spending such a ridiculous amount of time going on about her. So, I don't want to take up the entire time talking about Grania, but I definitely wanted to get into, a lot of information about her, because she is so similar to Sky Captain Hawke. Completely by accident, and she's awesome. And another tie-in between the character and the historical figure is Kira is half Irish, although her father is Scottish. It was her mother who was Irish, but Grania's parents were both very, very Irish. Uh, so I'm going to move on from Grania. I do have quite a bit more that I could say about her, but again, I don't really want to take up the whole time talking about just one person, even though she deserves it. Um, I would like to turn the clocks back a little bit, and since we're steampunks, we all own a time machine just in our back pockets, we can do that. So, uh, so yes, my steampunk friends, let's take our time machines back to the age of ancient Greece, where we find ourselves in the place where piracy got its start. It is one of the world's oldest professions. And in a few cultures, it was considered completely legal and respectable to be a pirate. I'd like to have lived in one of those cultures. Although the notion of classical piracy is a little bit skewed, and at least being a classical pirate in the 1600s would have honestly kind of sucked. But it probably would have been pretty cool at the same time. But more on that later. So, if piracy is one of the oldest professions in the world, it would stand to reason that women have been involved just as long. What's the phrase? Well-behaved women seldom make history. Well, Eleanor Roosevelt was right. And some of the earliest recorded pirates were actually women. Um, So I believe like the earliest one that we really have on record is Queen Artemisia of Greece. She hold on. Yeah, she Queen Artemisia the First of Caria. She was an ancient Greek queen of the city-state of Halicarnassus, who reigned from 484 to 460 BCE. So I do want to point out that the pirates did, I guess, get their start in the Mediterranean region because it really, its geography, its coastal geography, really lent itself to these early pirates. Let me just show you a map. Actually, I don't have a map of the Mediterranean. I forgot to include that one. Um, but you know, a lot of us are familiar with what that region looks like. There are a lot of cliffs, especially in Greece, and all these little nooks and crannies and alcoves in which people could hide out in a boat and ambush other merchant ships. Um, so they would hide in the coves just offshore and lie in wait for their prey, which were usually larger merchant vessels. Others chose to outright attack coastal towns, setting the tone for our modern concept of piracy. So, I do kind of want to point out that one pirate who was known to have challenged Alexander the Great, um, it pointed out there was a fine line between warfare and piracy, at least back in those days. And when this pirate was captured by Alexander, he pointed out that when he plunders a sea in a single boat, he is called a pirate. Yet when Alexander the Great plunders an entire nation with his vast armies, he is called emperor. I think the same could be applied to some modern socio-political issues, don't you agree? Because the more things change, it would seem, the more they stay the same. So, at the Artemisia, our original pirate numero uno, um, I do have a picture of her. She is right here. Bring her up on screen. All of her ancient Greek glory. She looks a lot like the goddess Artemis there, which I'm sure she named herself after. Um, and interestingly enough, Artemisia absinthium is the plant for which absinthe gets its name. A little bit of steampunk boozy trivia there for you. Um, Artemisia is the genus of the common mugwort and other ornamental varieties. That's also my day job. I work at a plant nursery. Um, so, Artemisia fought as an ally of King Xerxes of Persia, and she commanded her fleet of 5 ships during the naval battles of Artemisium and Salamis. She was something of a rebel as she took the side of the Persians during their second invasion of the Greek city-states, even though she was a Greek queen. But some scholars do debate this. They said that she may have in fact hated the Persians and was only biding her time. And I can kind of see that, and I'll mention a little bit more about that in a minute. Um, During the Battle of Salamis, which was led by Xerxes, Artemisia's flagship was being pursued by an Athenian vessel. This lady was like a straight up badass, which they all were, but like she found herself cornered. So to throw off the enemy, which were really her own people, she rammed a friendly vessel, a Calendian ship, and she sunk it and everybody on board. But seeing this, the Athenians assumed she was a Greek ship, and not realizing who she was and the enormous price on her head, they left her alone to pursue others. And if they realized who she was, she probably would have been captured. So that was one hell of a victory for Artemisia. Xerxes, who was impressed by her nerve and outright daring, actually he was very impressed, and he wrote that of Artemisia. And after his defeat, which was really a disaster, at Salamis, Xerxes gave up on attacking Greece, and Artemisia is credited with persuading him into that. So maybe she was on the side of Greece, which were city-states. They weren't really as unified as we might think of them. But, they were kind of one Greek nation, sort of. Um, but I'd like to point out that Salamis is the first recorded naval battle in history, with Queen Artemisia being among the first recorded pirates. And it's about as badass as you can get. And yeah, while Artemisia may have saved Greece from Xerxes, I think it's kind of safe to say that in reality she was on her own side like a true pirate would be. Evidence for this is in the fact that she mercilessly raided her own towns because, pirate queen and all. And so, since we are on the subject of pirates queens, um, allow me to introduce you to another ancient woman, and another one of my favorite historical figures of all time, Queen Tuta of Ilaria. She is perhaps, she's just awesome. Um, so I aspire to be as badass as this gal, and even though I'll never be that cool, um, Queen Tuta is one of the 4 pirate women referenced in the back of my book on the history behind the characters. And if you've read Building Steam and you haven't flipped through that section yet, I highly recommend that you do. The story certainly stands alone by itself, but this section is intended to give you some introspection into the real life people who inspired me. I think they flesh out the characters a little bit more, even in retrospect, and certainly sets them up to be even more awesome in the second book, which is currently being worked on. So, here is Queen Tuta. Let me bring her on screen. Oh my god, I'm sorry. I never took down the picture of Queen Artemisia. Here I am again. Lovely. Um, Here's Queen Tuta. And, yep, there she is. So there is her ancient picture there, her bust, and there is an artist's rendition of her in the midst of battle. Um, she looks like she was quite a beautiful woman, but she's definitely got that stern look on her face and that bust there, and not somebody I would want to cross. And by comparison, here is the character that she kind of inspired. That is my very own character, Captain Layla Aaron. She is the infamous pirate queen, who again is the lead supporting character in my book. And she's the fan favorite of the book. Isn't that awesome? Like, I think it's amazing that I have a fan favorite. I am, like, just in awe of that. So thank you, all of my friends and people who've read the book and who've made that happen. That's pretty special. Thank you. Let me just see the comments again. Thank you, Don Diego. I like to think I'm cool, but I don't think I'll be ever as badass as Queen Tuta, and I'm going to explain why. I can't ever hope to be a pirate queen. I just play one on TV. So, getting back to Tuta, she was the queen of the pirates, and she, to give you a scale, a scope of who she was and what she did. Checking on my time here. Yes, okay, I'm doing good. Imagine commanding an entire fleet of pirates. Now imagine that you're their queen, and piracy is a respectable, lucrative profession within your domain. Such was the life of Queen Tuta of Ilaria, who reigned from 232 to 228 BCE. Ilaria was an ancient kingdom along the Adriatic Sea, and Tuta reigned over the I can't even say that word, Ardean tribe, which encompasses most of the Adriatic's eastern shore. If you don't know where that is, fear not, for I provided a map. The Adriatic is that body of water between Italy and Eastern Europe. It's going to be 1 second. Here it is. Here's the map. So there it is. There's Ilaria, you can see, and that little yellow highlighted area is Queen Tuta's tribe, her kingdom. And there's the Adriatic, and that little red bit in the corner there is Italy. So, bring this down. There we go. So yeah, there it is. And she took over the throne as Queen Regent when her husband died in place of his infant son. It wasn't her son, it was his son from some other lady. I don't think she had any children that I'm aware of. Upon taking command, Tuta's first order of business was to grant letters of marque to privateers, thus making piracy 100% and completely legal without any questions asked. You can see where her priorities lay. This authorized them to plunder and pillage at will, bringing back as much loot as they possibly could. Next, she assembled a powerful navy, and every land was regarded as an enemy. So, in essence, she just declared war against the rest of the world, especially Rome. What a woman! At this time, it was the Roman Republic. They were an upcoming superpower, but they were still, they were Rome. They were still pretty powerful. And not to be trifled with, but she challenged them anyway, because they were directly across the Adriatic Sea, and that's just what you do, I guess, when you're quite a few miles away from somebody else. But, the Italian merchants provided an easy target for her, so she just bombarded the entire coast of Italy. And Rome. Uh, uh, Rome was, they were tired. They got tired after a while of continuously getting complaints about these merchants being attacked. So they decided to go out and do something. And actually, it wasn't so much her powerful navy that Rome was concerned with, it was her gangs of pirates. Her navy was a navy of pirates. They were all privateers. But then she had, other pirates on top of that, which was, her whole kingdom. And although the Illyrian ships were small and fast, the privateers preferred to attack coastal villages rather than merchant vessels. So this kind of does set the scene for our classical idea of piracy, where they just sail on in, plunder, burn, rape, whatever they do. And these brutal murderous raids were so frequent that they did disrupt Mediterranean settlements to the point where they actually had to move further inland to avoid being plundered. And within no time, Tuta's pirates had taken full control of the Italian coast. And she plundered her own people, too, on her own coast. Of course, the Pirate Queen didn't just sit back and watch this happen. No, she took pleasure in accompanying her privateers and commanding entire fleets in vicious raids that could last days. Captain Aaron would be proud of her. Eventually, her bloodthirsty conquests, did make it to Rome, and the Romans sent 2 of their guys to negotiate, and she murdered one of them and sent the other back home to tell the tale. So Rome went to war against Queen Tuta, because that's what Rome does best, is go to war with everybody. And while Tuta was busy terrorizing the coast, Rome sent a fleet of 200 ships to storm Illyrian cities and capture their galleys. The Illyrians dispersed, and eventually, in 228, Tuta did surrender. She concluded a treaty in which she gave up most of Illyria and promised to only send out a couple of unarmed galleys at a time. How civil of her. While Tuta's reign came to a rather anticlimactic end, they didn't kill her, they did allow her to keep reigning. They just pared down the land that she owned, her territory. She survived for a while, and legend has it that she eventually took her own life by jumping off a cliff. Part of me thinks that, that's possible, but Tuta seems too powerful and too proud of a woman to just end it like that. I kind of think she probably continued her piratical ways, albeit less frequently and probably under a different name. Because, Mediterranean piracy didn't just end with Tuta, it kept going. Evidence for her survival there is debatable, but to me it's hard to imagine that such a woman would just give up a life like that. Maybe piracy became more of a hobby than an occupation, but regardless, Tuta remains one of the most bloodthirsty queens in history. She dared defy Rome, fought for her kingdom, and became a legend. That's quite a feat and a measure of girl power I think us ladies can all aspire to. So, a whole host of other lady pirates would later make it to the history book. Shanghai Sao is another one that's, awesome and badass, and she used the fact that she was a woman and a pirate and a former prostitute to gain her political power and to bridge the gap between the socio-political worlds uh, outlaw and official. Like, it was because she was a woman and because she was a pirate that she made this happen, which is just remarkable. It's amazing. Cheng Ai Sao did live later in the much later on in the pirate scene, really towards the tail end of when we think of like classical piracy. She lived it was around 1808 was like the height of her career to like 1810. Um she and initially her husband, who later died suddenly, but the two of them made a formidable team at first, and together they commanded a fleet of some 400 ships and 70,000 men. They reigned over an armada of pirates. And when her husband died in 1807, Chiang Ai Sao took over and thus became the legendary pirate queen that we know of her as today. As a woman pirate, she got support from her husband's most powerful chieftains to kind of to secure her place and made herself indispensable to the pirate gangs that she and they had initially unified and secured their loyalty. And next, she developed a strict code of ethics and laws for her ships, and through the strictly enforced and severe laws, she managed to secure her position of power. And she reigned with an iron fist. And I think anybody would have had to do that to gain the amount of respect that she had. But I mean, she was also a woman, so women have never had it easy, and I think that was potentially more of the fuel that ignited the fire under her, and I think that's great. An article from JSTOR states, uh, for instance, stealing from the villagers or from the communal treasury were considered capital offenses. Desertion and disobedience led to decapitation, and sexual offenses against female captives were also severely punished. In the case of rape or even consensual sex, the offending parties were put to death. So, I mean, that's pretty great. These were female captives that she was standing up for too. Um, it shows that she did have a conscience and a heart, and she wasn't just mercilessly raiding. And she was doing this because she was a woman. That is what made her success. And like she's an excellent example of female empowerment. And she's awesome. So if you want to do further research on any of these gals, I think like Cheng Ai Sao is like if you're gonna pick one, go after her. She's pretty cool. Uh so to wrap up a little bit about her because we are running a little bit short on time, and I do have a couple of women that I wanna bring up. It's Anne Bonny and Mary Read are the last two. I just want to mention that Cheng turned many of her culture's old gender notions on their head. When she was ready to retire from her life of piracy, Cheng gracefully negotiated with the Chinese officials, which granted her second husband 80 ships for his own personal use and 40 for salt trade. And when her confederation dissolved, her pirates were granted leeway, and any of them could renounce their life of piracy and cross over to a position among the Chinese Empire. So it's one woman, one confederation of piracy, and one letter to success. Like, how's that for girl power? So, I do want to bring up Anne Bonny and Mary Read. They are, again, two women that I look up to. Yes, they are pirates, but they seem fated to have met, and they're pirates in the classical sense. They lived in the 1600s. I believe they died. They were captured in October of 1720, so it's just over 300 years ago. And they were both kind of like illegitimate daughters. They were born under shady circumstances, and they both met again aboard Captain Jack Rackham's ship, which I believe was called the Revenge. Um, and Captain Calico Jack is kind of the inspiration behind Captain Jack Sparrow, so it's a cool little pop culture tie-in there. He was called Calico Jack because he's said to have dressed in like elaborate fancy coats that he stole from the people he murdered. So, let me just bring up this part here. Give me a second. It is right here. Yes, Anne Bonny was born March 8th, 1697, and she died in 1782. And Mary Read was 1685 to April 28th, 1721. So, here is a picture of these ladies. They are right here. Oh, and hold on a second. Whoops, sorry. There is Cheng Ai Sao. I didn't mean to bring her up before. There she is. But once we're done with her. There's Anne Bonny and Mary Read. Anne Bonny is on the right, and Mary Read is on the left there. So, they were both, yeah, kind of bastard daughters, and they found their way onto Rackham's ship, and they lived quite a life as the infamous female pirate duo, the Femme Fatales of the classical pirate world. Some people think that they were lesbian lovers. Evidence for that, I think, is debatable. I think that they were certainly close, of two lady pirates on one ship, but they were both in with the captain, and they were both pardoned when their ship was captured because they're both pregnant by Captain Jack. So they weren't two. I think they went both ways. That's what I'm trying to say here. But they were probably, I'm sure, very close, even as just friends. But a statue of them as lovers is going up in London, I believe at Execution Dock. Here's a picture of the statue. I don't know if that's just an artist rendering or if it's already up. But there it is. Execution Dock is where pirates were hung long ago. So, I mean, Anne Bonny and Mary Read are certainly, like, they're awesome, and I wish I had more time to talk about them, but I would like to open it up to questions. I'm sorry I couldn't get to more of them because they are just an awesome tale in and of themselves. So, if you have the book and you haven't read it, there is an abridged version of their tale in here. Anne Bonny actually ended up living into her 80s, and she had children and grandchildren, I believe. She did marry, and she retired in South Carolina, and Mary Read died in jail, presumably from complications with her pregnancy. So, at this time, I would like to open up the floor to questions. Yeah, thank you. And, so, yeah, somebody said they were just reading about, Anne Bonny and Mary Read there. There is an article that just came out about them. That picture I showed you of their statue came out in The Independent 2 days ago. Definitely look it up. So it's a very recent article I posted on my Facebook. And thank you, Doctor. Yes, Jim. Jim cosplays as the Doctor from Doctor Who, so I'm calling him Doctor. I would love to bring this to schools. And if you want to see a copy of my book, if you want to get a copy of my book, Melissa, you can look it up on my website, which is theskycaptain.com. I can bring that up real quick, actually. Oh my god, it's Captain Jim Pico. I'm sorry. You have like a similar last name to this other guy named Jim, and I got you confused. Very sorry. Sorry about that, Captain Jim Pico. But anyway, your comment is no less it's very wonderful to hear. Thank you, and I think I might actually do that. So you can go to theskycaptain.com, which is my website, and you could also find Building Steam on Amazon and on Etsy. So there it is again. Let me bring up my thing here to make sure that I'm focusing on this. Yes, Building Steam, Book 1 in the Skyhawk Saga. I am Renee J. Fleury. I designed the cover and the back cover all by myself. Very proud of that. So are there any other questions about lady pirates or anything that I've mentioned here today? Additionally, if you have any other questions, and you can't think of them here, you can always message me. Feel free to friend me on Facebook, or at least message me through there, and I'll be happy to respond to you. Probably work out better than email, but you can email me too, skycaptainphoto@gmail.com. Kodakan, this has been really informative. Are there any specific resources you found useful that you would recommend if we want to continue reading? Yes, I happen to have them underneath my own book here, and thank you for mentioning that. Completely forgot to bring them out. I have two books that I used extensively in my reading. You can go and Google all of this, yes, but I like having real books. She Captains, which the good Mr. Douglas Yeager gifted to me. This has been a wonderful resource. Thank you very much. Again, She Captains by Joan Druitt, Heroines and Hellions of the Sea. And it is the book that inspired part of the title for this. And the other one here is Pirate Women, which is the first one that I actually picked up right when I started writing my book, actually. The princesses, prostitutes, and privateers who ruled the seven seas. And that is by Laura Suk Duncombe. And I've heard both of these books actually referenced in other pirate literature that I've read. So those are the two that I highly recommend. There are other books out there, but those are among my favorites. And there's a lot of great information out there online too. So even if you don't get the chance to get these books, just do a Google search too, and there's a ton of great info out there. And you are quite welcome. I'm very happy to have been able to pass along this. And again, if you have the book and you want just a crash course in it, right here, right at the back, is the history behind the characters. Let me just find there it is. There's the page. See, it's right at the back there. So if you want like a good crash course, I'm proud of the way that this turned out. So yeah, Sam, is that all the time we have? Is that our wrap? 'Cause there's supposed to be about 45 minutes. I can put up my website here. Hold on a second. Code again. I love that you included your inspiration at the end of the book. Thank you. It was the least I could do for these, these historical real people, who inspired me. And I hope that somewhere out there they know that they spurred my imagination into overdrive. And I'm happy that they lived it all to give the world their stories and to give us women something to aspire to. And there's a lot of powerful women out there, but I mean, pirate women are pretty badass. They're among the best, if you ask me. So I am gonna put on my outro. Oh, all right. Thank you, Sam. And thank you, Douglas. Sam, do I have time to talk a little bit about the forthcoming book? Is that our wrap? Just let me know. You can cut me off at any time if you have to. I am writing the second book. Okay, thank you. Cool. Yes, book 2, yes. We're getting to book 2 there, Captain Jim. Thank you, Steampunk to New England. And you're quite welcome. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Book 2 is called Wanderlust. It is, you know what? We're gonna do something cool right now. And I'm going to add in, while I'm talking about it, going to add in a picture. And this is probably going to be terrible. It's probably a terrible idea what I'm doing right now. Don't listen to me. But I do have the cover for the forthcoming book. It's... Forget it. No, I don't. I can't do that. I'm sorry. But eventually the cover reveal will be there. It's called Skyhawk Wanderlust, and it is a lot more character driven than Building Steam is, and it involves the Sonoran uh, Aero Club, which is a mysterious part of Americana that not many people know, and it involves a conspiracy with, as all my books do, um, uh, that involves the great airship mystery of the late 1870s. And the Sonora Aero Club was a real, possibly fictional, but you can look it up. Sonora Aero Club was a group of airship enthusiasts who may or may not have ever existed, but in my book they certainly do, and they are actually more of a specialized fleet than just a little club that met at a saloon. But definitely give that a look for some a little bit of historical background behind the upcoming novel. So it's a lot of fun. Um, you're quite welcome. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you for that. Um, so yeah, that's about it. That's our wrap. I am going to put up my thing here. I'll put up my outro. Thank you again, everyone.